In this video, we're going to take a look at the Sage 300 2016 new features. So the first and perhaps the biggest new feature is the web screens that are released in Sage 300. These are called Sage 300C, and this is what Sage 300 web screens look like when you open them, the home page at least. If you're familiar with the portal from previous versions, this is a recoded version of the portal, although some of the information that you get is the same. So you see you can have some dashboard kind of information on the home screen. I can click the three lines over here, the menu or the hamburger as some people call it, and have a list of additional widgets. Let's say I want to put the payables and the receivables aging on this screen. And then you can see down at the bottom, I now have a payables and receivables aging as well as income and expenses. I can mouse over the bars and get the specific value of each bar. All of these you'll notice have a menu button. Some we can do things like edit the title, refresh, or close. Others, like the payables aging, we actually have parameters that we can set. So we can set to age on a different time period and age by the document date rather than the due date. We can also filter so that we include specific transactions in this aging. And when we do that, the system will refigure the aging periods of the various transactions. Same thing on the receivables aging. Notice we have some settings. We can change the title. Now that's the home screen. We also have new screens for things like customers, and we can open multiple screens at one time. And we have an administrative menu. So if we go back over here to the windows, now that you see I have two windows open, I can click this icon and it allows me to navigate between the various open windows on the system. So in accounts receivable, you can see I have a search screen similar to what you have currently in the desktop version. And we can supply different search criteria. For example, I want to do customer name contains black. And we can find Ronald Black. We can also modify the columns that are showing. So we have access to a whole list of columns. And then once we find the customer we want, we can select the customer. And the customer information will display, and we can edit it in a tabbed interface. These are true web screens. As you can see, this is not like an OCX control running in a web version. These are actually HTML and various web components, Java and such. So we have the customer screen. We can also switch to another screen if we need to. Vendor screen's very similar in terms of searching. And again, we can select a vendor and it will bring the vendor's information up on the screen. The other thing we have, notice we have accounts payable, accounts receivable, and general ledger converted to web screens. Other applications like order entry, inventory control, and purchase orders will follow. We also have the ability to do some administrative services, bank transactions, setup, common services, and such over here on the More menu. And we can customize the navigation. So for each one of these menus, we have a list of options that are available. And if we just uncheck these options, if you notice over here under vendor reports, we have letters, labels, these options. If we just don't use this particular form, we can uncheck that and save it. And these are saved by individual user. If I go back up here, to the menu, you'll notice it does not disappear yet. But if I close the browser and I reopen, you'll notice that all of my changes were saved. And when I go to vendor reports, now the CPRS report is gone from the list. So these are the new web screens. This is in Sage 300C, which is available on a subscription basis. Now let's take a look at a few changes that are actually in the standard interface, the desktop interface you might call it. These are also going to be available through the portal if you're using the portal, or through the web deployment interface. There are a number of changes to security. One of the first ones is this user authorizations report is more detailed now, and you have the ability to print more information to more fully define what a user has access to in the system. So there are no users set up, but this does give me a very detailed report. There have been some changes also made to security groups. In prior versions, for example, the admin user was the only user that could do certain things, such as dump and load databases. You've now got additional security options for selection for all users to allow them to dump and load, and they can use the dump and load outside this user interface. If you look on the system, you'll notice that dump and load are also accessible as separate programs, and a non-admin user can now access those as well as the icons within. Throughout the product, for example, in bank services, screens have been optimized to open much more quickly. So under the reverse transaction screen under bank services, you'll find that many of the screens, such as check payment number, check receipt number, and bank entry number finders, open much more quickly. In addition to this, if you look on many of the screens, and I'll show you the reconcile statements screen first, you'll notice a post button has been added to the data entry screen. This is also true in many of the modules, such as in the accounts payable transactions screen, where you're entering invoices on the invoice entry screen. You now have a post button on the entry screen itself, allowing you to post from the data entry screen without needing to go back to the invoice batch list. This has been changed several places in the system: payment batches, credit notes, and also in accounts receivable. In addition to this, on many of the same batch entry screens, a Post All button has been added, allowing the user to post all the batches that have been that are unposted at the current time. Those are the major enhancements in Sage 300 2016. And if you'd like to see a full demonstration of the product, drop us a line at info@dgginc.com. You can also reach me at my email address, bobp@dgginc.com, or either of the telephone numbers on the screen. My extension is extension 118. Thank you for watching.